Hey, what is going on? This is the Dealer Playbook Podcast, Session 87 Video Edition. Thanks so much for joining me here on the show today on YouTube or Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you found the video link. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Today's show is going to be really powerful for those of you who are, overseeing or involved in some way, shape, or form of the marketing of your dealership. I've got some really cool guests on the show. Now, if you followed the show previously and back to day one, you'll know that the guests we have on the show today have all been on individually and dropped some serious power bombs in those episodes. But I've got the three of them on today talking about something that I think will resonate with you. I'm grateful to call these gentlemen personal friends. We've got Glenn Pasch, Troy Spring, and Tracy Myers, who are all juggernauts when it comes to advertising and marketing. Well, today they're on the show talking about their brand new book, The Power of Connected Marketing. They're going to drop some serious value bombs on you and teach you some strategies that you can implement immediately that they've taken from the book that's about to come out, where you can actually unify your marketing efforts to see massive gains. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, okay, well, you guys never really pitch or talk about products or services or things of that nature on the show. Why am I doing that today? Well, it's pretty simple. For those of you that are listening to this episode of the podcast on launch day, which is May 12th, 2016, this book is going to come out on May 13th, 2016, and a portion of the proceeds of the book sales on Amazon, I think Glenn said we're up to $4. $4 from each sale of each book is going towards the hashtag #PollyStrong Foundation. Now, earlier this year, a good friend of ours, many of you listening in have heard of or have met Paul Jimenez. Him and his family earlier this year experienced a tragedy in the loss of their son and brother, Polly. But what has come from that is Paul and his family starting the hashtag #PollyStrong Foundation, which the proceeds go towards building awareness and finding a cure for pediatric cancer so that, less and less families have to be affected by this horrendous disease. Now, on a positive note, my hat's off to Glenn and Troy and Tracy for thinking about that foundation and associating with it in the book sale. So stay tuned throughout this episode. You're going to hear them talk about the book, but don't worry, they're also going to be delivering you some incredible value from its pages, things that you can implement today. So without further ado, let's dive into my sit down with Glenn Pasch, Troy Spring, and Tracy Myers. Here we go. All right, here we go. Sitting down with three juggernaut power players in the automotive industry. They've all been guests individually on the Dealer Playbook, now joining me together for one big power bomb. We've got Mr. Glenn Pasch, Troy Spring, and Tracy Myers, who I got to tell you, Tracy, there's a new Mick Foley fan in the Cirillo household after Saturday night's wrestling.
Oh, yeah, man. You get them hooked once, and they always go back, right?
Well, it was Jeff Jarrett at first, and then now Mick Foley, and that just sealed the deal. So,
yeah,
anyways,
good guy.
I super pumped to have you guys on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about the new book that you've co-authored, The Power of Connected Marketing. And definitely for those of you tuning in, you're going to want to stay tuned for the end of this episode where I'm going to tell you how you can get your hands on some copies of that book. Definitely want to check it out. I've been privileged enough to read the advanced copy of that book, and I'll tell you what. It is. Dude, it's filled with nuggets and power bombs, and I love how it puts everything together. But I want to turn this question over to you, Glenn. The three of you are very much, in my opinion, specialists in a variety of different marketing methods, whether it's print, radio, television, online. In your opinion, what's the biggest challenge that dealers are facing when it comes to their marketing? I mean, with all of those different things that they could be doing, what's your opinion? How do we solve this challenge, and what is the challenge in your opinion?
I think it's exactly what you just said. There's all of these things that they could be doing, they have done and stopped, or they are doing. Problem is why we wrote the book. They're not connected. They are in a silo. So, for example, you have an agency and you hire them and they're doing your radio ads and maybe some of your TV. The problem is that they're in every one of those pieces of marketing, those commercials or radio ads, they have your website and they're driving traffic to the website. The problem is they never sat down with the people who are running your online marketing or your website to say, where should we send this traffic? So they're just arbitrarily sending it to wherever they want. So the message may not be the same on the website. So what I see on the commercial, I'm not seeing on the website, disjointed. And so the people online, they're running your AdWords, they're doing their work in a silo. The people in the store may or may not know what's going on in terms of what ad was running, what things they're doing, what benefit they're doing on the website. So they're disjointed. And so what we're having here is all of this waste. And that's really when I sat down with Tracy and Troy and we got talking about this idea that we all saw. We said, well, we should join forces, for that reason. Troy, he's evolving, and I'll let him speak about that, but he's evolving in his agency to handle more online, but he came from the traditional route. And Tracy, who handles a lot of all of it himself, he's really known, or people understand him for what he does in store. But again, even for us, all three of us have a tendency to work in our own silos when we go in and work. And then all of a sudden, I think there's so much waste, so much money that could be better spent. And from what these two gentlemen are providing in the book, they're showing you exactly what to do to be able to go back to your vendor and say, hey, if you're running my commercial, am I getting the most out of it? Here's how I should check. So again, it's the education is one part. And then actually, are you connecting everything to maximize the money you're spending?
Okay, and I love that because it is about, making the most efficient use of all of these different marketing mediums so that you can maximize the return that you're getting. And I know things like return on advertising investment and all these different terms are very popular in the industry, and we've become sophisticated with them. But like you're saying, there's a lot that we should or could do, or maybe there's things that we try out that we don't give enough time to, or we don't really understand the objective. And this is where I want to turn it over to Tracy. I remember I attended a driving sales a few years ago, and they brought you up on stage to debate the efficiency, I guess we'll call it, of television versus online. In the digital age, I mean, you've found quite a bit of success working with television, and I know there's a lot of listeners who are still using television. In your opinion and in your experience, what's the most effective way? Is there still an online element when you do the quote-unquote traditional marketing? Or what's your process for tying that all together so that it's one kind of cohesive strategy?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, and I remember that. I remember that event well because I was kind of led to the slaughter. You're at a digital conference, and they're asking you to debate. Yeah, they're asking you to debate whether traditional marketing is still effective. And the answer, quite frankly, is of course it's still effective, because not just because so many different people use it. Because look, there are people. And this book, by the way, is for all types of businesses, not just automotive, which is one of the things I love about the book, and one of the many things. But, there's a lot of people using both traditional methods or online and offline marketing methods wrong. And that's one of the things that this book really brings to the forefront is how to use these elements right and tie them all together. So in my marketplace and other dealers that I consult, it really, I hate to say it depends, because that's the attorney's answer. It depends on the market, but it totally depends on the market, and it depends on the message. What I found out in a lot of dealerships that maybe deals with a lot of, let's say, lower income clientele. Lower income clientele, they don't have as much of a digital presence as somebody with maybe higher income levels. They still watch a lot of television. That's their movie, so to speak. I took my kids to see Jungle Book 2 weeks ago, which is amazing, by the way, especially in IMAX 3D. But man, that gimmick was $68 before refreshments. Mm-hmm. So that lower income family, they're going to stay at home and they're going to watch TV. So and they're not getting all the tiers on cable or direct TV. They're watching basic television. So depending on your marketplace, depending on your customer, there's still a lot of businesses in general that they're effectively using television and radio. And the example I use at driving sales is when Google launched, it's probably not a good example actually, but I'm going to go and put it out there. When Google launched Google Plus, which has been a huge failure, right? They spent bazillions of dollars on television.
Hey Tracy, to that note, just jump in there. So does Geico, so does Auto Trader, so does TrueCar, so does GoDaddy. I mean, all of them do.
Online-based businesses.
Right. Yeah, online-based businesses use traditional marketing, but there's a connection there, right? That's a lot of what we talked about.
I think it is to Tracy's point and to all of this. What this book is really helping, and I'm glad Tracy's pointing this out, is that this affects every type of business. This is useful for every type of business. The key that what Troy and Tracy and myself are trying to provide here is the ability for someone to understand how to measure. Because in a marketplace, TV could be the best buy, the best use of your money. And Tracy touched on it and sort of skimmed quickly over it, and I want to put the brakes on a second, is that just because you're running now to online media and doing AdWords and the website and I'm doing all these cool social media advertising, you could be wasting your money because you're doing it wrong. But I'm in online media. I cut my TV budget because I went to a conference and they said traditional is dying and I'm going to go over here and do AdWords, and I'm just throwing the money out because I don't know how to really measure it. And I think Troy's section and Tracy's section, my section, we're all trying to say we're not going into the nuts and bolts. Troy's did a little more about here's your formulas, but we're trying to arm them so they can sit with their vendors to say, should I not be doing AdWords? Because if your website's not set up for AdWords, why are you doing AdWords? Right. You might as well go back and do commercials if that's doing, and if you're getting it at a good cost, that's the key. If it's a good cost and you're measuring and you're getting return by using it, then load up on TV, load up on newspapers. We use in the example here. If you could get the back page of your local newspaper on Sunday with the highest circulation, full page for $1, would you do it? I don't care if you say newspapers are dead. I do it every single. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Because it's the cost and the reach and all the rest of that.
You know what's standing out to me right now, playing off of this. So Tracy mentioned something really important, and that's understanding your market or understanding the demographics. And then turning over to Troy, you mentioned a lot of online businesses that are using traditional mediums. And then, of course, Glenn talking about how to tie those all together so that it's measurable. Well, the thing that stands out to me is, in my experience, what I'm seeing is that businesses, they get the idea, like you said, they go to a conference, they hear this grand idea, this one-size-fits-all concept, they go back to their business and they say, I have to try this, the expert told me X, Y, and Z, but they're not understanding or perhaps not investing enough time into what happens before that, understanding the market. What is my objective here? By putting this by putting this advertisement on television, that is fulfilling purpose A, and then by directing them to my website, it's fulfilling purpose B, and then by turning on AdWords, it's fulfilling purpose C. I mean, what's your experience, Troy, when you go and you're working with businesses in your line of work? Where do you start with them? What do you find are the things that they're missing most, and what quickly can help them kind of put the puzzle pieces together?
Well, interesting. Good question. Great question. Interestingly enough, I think what we realized that they were missing the most was the connection, right? And that's where Glenn and I really connected together. And Tracy, when we were at Mastermind that one day and chatting about, how businesses, and again, Tracy makes a great point. This is not just about the automotive industry. We see it all over the place. But if they've got an ad on television and or on radio and or a direct mail campaign that is out, any sort of advertising whatsoever, even a Facebook ad, it doesn't matter. Whatever is pushing that person to their website, when they get onto their website, which I think we all now call the second lot in the auto industry in particular, right? Where the customer can walk on a lot and see what they see. They can go to the website and see what they see, and maybe they don't have to get off their couch. But if they hear an ad on the radio that says that we're selling Ford Escapes for $99 a month, and this is that, and it's the Memorial Day weekend sales event, and we're doing this and we're doing that, we know this day and age that customer's going to end up on that website. Some way, somehow, some form, they're going to end up there. They're going to shop there before they shop the lot.
Yeah.
So when they get to that website, what do they find? Did they find anything about the Memorial Day sale event that was just advertised? Did they find the $99 offer for the Escape? Did they find the big trade hook offer and how that's explained? Or is it just completely disconnected to the point where the customer wonders if they even landed on the right website? I'll tell you one reason I was really adamant about writing this book, in particular with Tracy. And Tracy knows this. I think this extremely highly of him. He does what we wrote about better than anybody I know. And, quite frankly, when you look at his dealership and his bricks and mortar and his business plan, what he does on television and what he does in traditional media is exactly what you find at frankmyersautomax.com, which is exactly what you find when you get to the dealership. There is not one disconnected part of what he does throughout his business plan where a customer ever feels, I wonder if this is the same place. I wonder if I'm going to find out about that offer. Even when you drive to his place, I've been privileged enough to be at his store, you walk in, you go, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I thought it would be. And so when you have that with a customer, whether or not it's Tracy's kind of over the top and flamboyant, awesome way of doing what he does, or if you're just at ABC Motors, or if you're in any other kind of brick and mortar store or restaurant, it doesn't matter. Does it connect all the way through so that the customer can really get ingrained into that business culture and feel connected to that business in a way that they feel comfortable with?
Sure.
And, so I think going back to your question, to be blunt, is if we found that dealers in particular, because as you know, I do a lot of business in the auto industry, dealers in particular were really disconnected. And that's where Glenn and I, hooked up, and his thought process on this was just awesome. That, hey, what they're doing in traditional isn't what they're doing in digital. And Glenn's company, as everybody knows, is really well respected. And, I value his opinion greatly, that he's really got to school his dealers in saying, hey, what you're doing offline and what you're doing with your other agencies, because they're their digital agency, hey, give that to us so that we can have a consistent message throughout and connect these things. And I think in the digital explosion over the last 5 or 6 or 8 years, or however, whatever it's been, whatever time frame anybody wants to say this has been happening, it's been a serious problem connecting the two worlds of offline media, online media. And then, quite frankly, like I said, Tracy sets the example of all examples of how to take that straight through to on-site marketing as well.
Sure. So, and, Tracy, let me ask you this, Tracy. How much of what Troy has observed about your business was intentional, and how much of it just kind of happened?
I'd like to say that all of it was intentional. The reality of it was we were who we were before the online presence ever came about, because we've been here for so long. My great-grandfather started the business 85 years ago. We started doing when I came into the business, 22 years ago, man. I'm 45 this month. So
we're getting old. We're getting old.
Yeah, right. So 22 years ago, I came in, and we were not a traditional retail store. And we started moving in that direction against my father's better judgment. But, I pulled him along, or pushed him, one or the other. But he came along for the ride. And, when the online boom happened, look, the reality of it is still happening, right? And that's one of the reasons we wrote the book, is people don't need to get too confused. It's not that different. It's just a different platform to get the message across. But that's another conversation. But what we need to really focus on right now is, I'll never forget when it really struck me. It goes back to everything Troy and Glenn just talked about. I saw an ad in the newspaper, which was still the relevant medium at the time. I remember I couldn't get a sales rep from our local newspaper to come to the store, to this dealership, to talk to me, because we weren't one of the we weren't one of the franchise stores with a lot of co-op money. The new car stores in this market, as in most markets, and this is 500,000 people in this market, so it's not huge, but it's a good medium-sized market. There's three groups here, dealer groups. They were averaging 6 to 8 pages per group, full color, full pages in the paper per day. So And back then, they weren't $500 a page or $800 or whatever they are now. They were thousands of dollars per page, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of that was co-op money. So I remember we had a website, but it was like most dealers. It was basically an electronic brochure. And I remember going to NIADA, which is the Independent Dealers Association, and they were saying less than 4% of independent dealers had a website, and we had one. So I'm like, oh man, we're rocking and rolling. We're way ahead of the curve. So I remember seeing a Volvo store here in town. They had a special lease offer, half page in the Winston-Salem Journal, which at that moment in time was a lot of money. So I went to that website, and guess where it took me? Now this has been years ago. It took me to the homepage. I wasn't interested in the lease of that Volvo. I was just interested to see where that took me because it was a very direct offer on one car. I went to the homepage, and there was nowhere could you find information about the offer. And I'm thinking, as a small business owner, oh my God, they spent thousands of dollars on that. If I'm in the market for a Volvo, I just went to the homepage. There's no information about that offer. So that moment, that light bulb went off, and I guess it was just the way my brain thought at the time. Everything I put out there needs to connect online as well, because that's the way I was shopping. I was shopping as a consumer that day, or trying to shop like a consumer to see where that marketing message connected, and it didn't connect. And I knew that they were basically doing like a lot of businesses are doing now. And I would dare say most businesses are doing now. It's not just putting a logo, reflecting back on what Troy said, maybe Memorial Day sale, and throwing that logo on the homepage. I mean, it's so much more than that, and this book goes into that in detail, which, we can't go into all those details here, but it's not just that. And so many businesses think that's all it is when they walk in, they've got that point of purchase display signage up, which is great, and we talk about that in the book, but everybody has to be ingrained in that, from your frontline staff. And another good example, how many times have you walked into a store and you said, hey, I'm here about the X that I saw on TV, online, in the paper, in the magazine, and they don't have a clue what you're talking about. And we probably all have that happen at various businesses. That's because they're not connected with the marketing message.
Right.
So it's also about your people.
It's funny, this morning on Facebook, I saw, and shout out to our friend Lindsay Shaker, she said, putting a banner on your website is not online marketing. So, so stop for sure. Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of that. There's this disconnect between what we're doing. So, in kind of recapping, we've now discussed the importance of connecting all of the pieces of your marketing into a unified, I guess, purpose or objective, or at least knowing the role that each piece of marketing or advertising you do plays in your overall marketing strategy. But let me turn this question over to you, Glenn. In your experience, because I know this is something that not only have I heard you speak about now for quite some time, and I know it's something that's really important to you and that your company does, where do we start? I mean, there's a lot of listeners right now saying, this is awesome. I understand the importance of connected marketing and why that's important. What do I do? What's my first action? Do I start canceling everything? Do I pull back? Do I level up? What's the starting point?
I would think the first thing that someone has to do is sit down and audit. Okay, I think you sit down before you change anything. I think you need to get a simple spreadsheet, and I think you need to say, okay, where are we advertising? Pull out all the stuff. And you'd be surprised, because Tracy and Troy, we've talked about this. You go in, it's surprising how many places people are still advertising, we're spending money, but yet they'll say, oh, I thought we canceled that a long time ago. They don't know. So really the first part is an audit, and that goes to everything, meaning, okay, where are we advertising in a traditional sense? Meaning, are we doing radio? Where? What are we running? How much are we spending? Boom. Newspapers, direct mail, email campaigns, then go into your online. I have my website. Well, am I doing SEO? Is someone helping? Am I building content? Paid search? All of that, everything you're doing. And then in terms of what Tracy's saying, what am I doing internally? Am I running event sales? Am I doing some online promotion, in-store promotion, something that map it all out? And then you need to go talk to these vendors and say, please explain to me in common sense terms. Dealers, especially dealers, have to stop getting intimidated by their vendors. They're paying them. So they need to sit there and say, please explain this to me in common sense. Don't use cost per click. What does this mean? What am I getting for this money? Then you can start making decisions to say, does this work or not? And then it's really following. I think Tracy and Troy talked about their experience, Tracy's Volvo experience from years ago. That's where agencies, I should say, not great agencies, they just do their part. Like, here's my ad, I threw it out there. They're not worried about where that customer's going. And that's where the dealer has to say, okay, if I launch an ad, where is it going? What am I expecting? Following that customer path. And then thinking, where is everywhere someone could find me? If they find me on a phone, they type in on a phone and they look at me. What are they seeing? Where are they going? What do I want that experience to be? If they're finding me on radio, where are they going? How are they connecting to me? If I send them a direct mail piece, I send them an email campaign, all of that. Then you can start seeing, literally get a whiteboard and map it all out and say, here's what a disconnect is. Because if that ad is coming here, is that message on my website? Yes or no? If it's not, well, we got to fix that. If it is, does it match? Okay, it does. Great. So once you measure it and you map it all out and you say, before you change anything, connect everything, draw the paths, and then you can start sitting there and saying, is it effective or not? Because I'll guarantee you, after you read Troy's section about TV or radio, I'll guarantee you people canceled things incorrectly because they didn't understand the formula. They knee-jerk reaction of, I'm spending too much money, but they don't understand what that means. In a lot of cases, they should probably be spending more money because it's working. So really, an audit, where am I spending money currently? Whiteboard it out and say, is that path? If a customer clicks here, where do they go? What do they see? Do I like that? Yes or no? Then you can start having the conversations about, should I ramp up, go down? And buying this book is going to be the first step of the education to be able to handle all of this.
Love it. So, Troy, where can listeners get a copy of the book?
Well, they should wait until this Friday. I don't know when you're going to launch this. But,
so this show is going to launch on Thursday. So that is, if you're listening to this in the future, the book's already out. If you're listening to the show live on Thursday, then stay tuned for tomorrow.
Then stay tuned for tomorrow.
May 13th.
Friday, Amazon.com. We're going to have a big event there. If they want to try to find Tracy or Glenn or myself socially, there's a lot of buzz right now on Facebook. I'm pretty sure over the next day or two we're going to finalize some incredible offers that we're doing. Glenn may want to share with you because I know it's near and dear to his heart. We're going to be offering, I think we're up to $4 per book, right, Glenn, as a donation for pediatric cancer.
So Paul Jimenez, his son passed away from pediatric cancer, so he started a foundation called Paulie Strong Foundation. He's a good friend of mine, so PCG is matching. So our company is donating $2 for every book that's sold to the foundation. Troy and Dealer World is going to do the same thing and match that, so $2. So every book that's bought on May 13th, we'll tally it all up, and then we'll make a donation to the Paulie Strong Foundation, as well as Troy said, we're going to be having other, bonuses where you could get a copy of either Tracy or Troy's previous book in electronic format. We'll also do bulk discounts where if you're buying 20 or more books, just send us the receipt and we will send you 20% more copies. So if you buy 100 books and send me it, I will send you 20 books out of, extra, so this way as well, encourage these big ones. Because again, vendors, you should be sending this book to your clients. It will help you as much as it'll help them.
So definitely a few things I'm picking up on. First one is we need to get this book in your hands. So definitely stay tuned for the show notes at www.thedealerplaybook.com/86, where all of those instructions will be listed, as well as a link to the Paulie Strong Foundation, where you can learn more about Paul Jimenez and his incredible, foundation that he started in behalf and in memory of his son, Paulie. And then, of course, you need to get this book in your hands so that you can start connecting the dots with your online marketing and stop, what I've observed complaining about how it doesn't work and finally figure out the path that you need to take for your marketing to be connected and give you a return. Tracy, Glenn, and Troy, thank you so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook today.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us, Michael. Always a pleasure.
All right, there you have it. Glenn Pasch, Troy Spring, and Tracy Myers all together on the Dealer Playbook, offering some powerful advice in how you can connect and unify your marketing so that you can get massive results. Some of the things that stood out to me in this episode, were things that I really truly believe in. The first and foremost being that you need to get to know your audience. I mean, how can you craft a message? How can you spend money in advertising a message that you don't know will resonate with the interests or help alleviate the pain of your audience? And if it doesn't alleviate pain, and if it doesn't generate buzz or interest with them, or if it doesn't resonate with them, how in the world is that going to compel them to come in and learn more? So getting to know your audience is very crucial. The second thing that stood out to me from this episode is performing an audit on your marketing efforts today. So looking at your vendors and what are you spending and what are you getting as a return, looking at your metrics and tracking those different types of objectives, and are you achieving them? Do your vendors understand the expectations that you have, and can they actually deliver solutions for those things? You need to be able to put your finger on the pulse and get a good gauge of what's going on. And in so doing, you're going to be that much more powerful, and you're going to be able to unify your marketing efforts because you'll know what's going on. You'll know what needs to be stripped out, where you can divert budget, maybe enhance. And so doing that audit is something that I would definitely encourage. And I almost lost it there. I almost said not doing an audit would make you an audiot, but don't hold that against me. You heard me in this episode talk about how you could get a free copy of their new book, The Power of Connected Marketing. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is visit www.thedeleurplaybook.com/DPB-iTunes and leave a review of the podcast on iTunes. I would love that so much. Once you've submitted your review of the show, all you have to do is screen grab it, send the screen grab to Michael at thedealerplaybook.com. I'll check it out, get your address info from you, and send you out a copy of the book. Now, if you liked this episode and you found value in it, I would definitely love if you'd subscribe to the Dealer Playbook podcast here on YouTube, or give a comment or a like, and I'll do my best to make sure that the guests jump in on the comments and answer your questions. Until next time, guys, keep the playbook open and dominate.